Bam! There we go. Yo, 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 yo. Check it out. We've got an incredible episode of hashtag Rise and Grind for you today. When I say incredible, I mean amazing. When I say amazing, I say fantastic. We're going to have an incredible conversation with an amazing human that we've never had on the show before. This is a guy that you may or may not know. I mean, he's usually out there hanging around with people like Adam Sandler and whatnot, but we got him to come hang out with us today at 5:30 in the morning. So we've got Calvin Wayman. He's going to be on the show today. This lady named Heather Parody, you might know her. No, I know you know her. Heather's with us today. It's going to be absolutely incredible. I'm coming to you live from Syracuse, New York. That's right, Syracuse, New York. Never really been here before. I think maybe I passed through here like once before or something like that. Not real sure. Do know I'm real close to that Canada place. I'm going to be heading to Canada a little bit later today, which is kind of crazy to say, but that is what's going on. But not as crazy as the stories that we are about to talk about right here on hashtag Rise and Grind. So I'm just going to drop this on you real quick. We're going to do some dancing so we can say hello to you so I can say hello to you, so Heather can say hello to you, so we can get the energy rocking and rolling this morning. We're going to do all that, but I'm going to drop this on you real quick. You ready? 44 siblings. That's all I'm going to say. 44 siblings. And no, my wife and I are not having another kid. This is not an announcement for the Lundys. All right, this is bigger than that, and it's going to be freaking awesome. So I'm glad you're here. Hashtag Rise and Grind. Let's go.
Good morning and welcome to Rise and Grind Live. Unlock your full potential with the power of daily motivation, education, inspiration with your host, Glenn Lundy, a husband to one, father to 8, global motivational speaker, and the author of The Morning Five.
I'm Heather Parody, former therapist turned online entrepreneur and wannabe.
Oh my gosh, that was faster than we wanted it to be. We're having a morning already here in Syracuse, New York, all right? So just give you a little update. Flew in. Now, dude, I wonder if I can do this. I need to get one more quick little shot, all right? So you're going to see a black screen on your screen. Don't worry, I'm right here. Super excited to spend some time with you this morning. But what I want to do is oh, it's not going to let me. All right, we're just going to have to do it like this. Hey, Heather, are you there?
I'm here and I'm awake and I'm woke.
You're here and you're awake and you're woke. I love it. Heather,
Yes.
I got a question for you. All right. I got a question.
Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready.
All right. And I wish you would let me do this little shot template. So here we go. New shot. It's not letting me do it. So here is the question. You ready?
Let's go.
You can be nervous. It's totally okay. Here's the question. So if you have your own plane, okay? You have your own plane.
Yes.
And you plan a trip on that plane to Canada.
Okay.
Okay. And then you find out that you're not able to take your plane to Canada because you don't have the right insurance.
Oh, that ain't good.
Okay.
You need some insurance.
No, you have insurance, but you don't have the right insurance for Canada. So you find out you can't take your plane to Canada. Right?
Okay.
Okay. So
Okay.
now you have to fly to Syracuse, New York, and drive across because you can't fly into Canada.
Okay.
Which plane would you use to fly to Syracuse?
Delta.
Great answer. I chose American. Now, here's the right answer, Heather. Here's the right answer. You should use your plane. Because just because your plane doesn't go to Canada doesn't mean your plane doesn't go to Syracuse, New York. But this dummy right here thought just like you did and immediately went, well, my plane can't go to Canada, so I got to go commercial to New York. So it took me 9 hours to get here yesterday going through because we had all these delays and all this stuff. And it hit me about halfway through. I'm like, I still could have used the plane. I'm still here in the United States. It was just such a crazy brain moment. So I'm glad you shared the brain moment with me. Ladies and gentlemen, that's right, Heather. Uh-huh.
I'm glad you're as dumb as me, Heather.
Hey, we're going to have some fun today, ladies and gentlemen. We got a guy named Calvin Wayman that is going to be on the show today. And this guy's got an incredible story. I'm excited to introduce him to you. Got a little clip that's going to show you what he's all about. He does have 44 siblings. Yes, I said he has 44 siblings. And so we are going to ask some real deal questions and have a lot of fun. Now, with that said, I need you to do me a huge favor. Those of you that are on Facebook, tag a friend, share this out. I got off to a little bit of a rocky start over here on the road. We're having a couple technical issues, but it seems like we've got that all sorted out now. So do me a huge favor. Tag some friends, get them in here, let them know where the show's at. For those of you on Clubhouse, good morning. I will be joining you after the interview. I will be joining you, and we can have a discussion about this live over on Clubhouse also. But of course, click the link at the top of the screen, and you'll be able to come join me, Heather, and Calvin on the show. With all of that said, let's play a little bit of music to get things rocking and rolling. What is this? A little country? I'm in New York, and country music comes popping through. Oh my goodness, what is going on today? This is nuts. Maybe we should go with this. No, that one won't play. Looks like we're going with this. Oh my goodness. You know what? I'm just going to do this. I'm going to do this. I am going to say good morning to all of you. Let's get to the show.
Where I live, what I'm up to. I get asked a lot of questions about my life, of where I've come from. There's a lot of curiosity about my life.
How are you adjusting with everything?
4 years ago, I started my life over. My name's Calvin, and I grew up in a fundamentalist faith. I have 44 siblings. Hands down, the best part of my life and upbringing is having 44 siblings. We grew up on a farm, and so with siblings, we worked together. We fed the animals, milked the cow, but there were certain key points in my life where the religion became very detrimental to my development.
Yes, I felt a yes. Yeah. I got out.
Where I really started to step out of the religion, I always had this drive to be an entrepreneur and work for myself. I quit my day job cold turkey and said, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. And that led me from Utah, and I went and lived in Southern California. That is what blew this thing wide open, because for the first time in my life, I was outside of it and I could observe what I was in. Because I first went very deep in studying where my church was founded, and then I traveled the world, visited other faiths. Leaving for me was hands down the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life.
One of the biggest questions that has been on my mind is whether or not I am going to stay with the community, the religion that I've been a part of for the last 29 plus years.
Calvin Wayman, welcome to hashtag Rise and Grind, my man. How are you this morning?
Man, I'm getting goosebumps and chills. I was like, oh, yeah, we're going there. Hey, good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Yo, good morning. 44 siblings, bro. All I need, here's how we got to start the show real quick. I just need boy or girl, their names, and their ages. Ready? Go. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, bro. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
It's a little early for that.
Birthdays. I know all the names, but birthdays would be more difficult. Yeah.
So what is the range of ages? Where is that coming from? Somebody's throwing a party somewhere this morning.
I'm sorry. I'm in a hotel.
Golly, what kind of hotel are you staying at, Heather? They're partying this morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. The age range is, my oldest brother's like 46, and my youngest is like 12. I don't know if we've mentioned yet. People might be like, how did somebody have 44? Like, how did a single person have 44? So I grew up in polygamy, fundamentalist Mormon polygamy. So I have one dad, 4 moms, which is still a lot per woman, because they each had 11 to 13 kids each, and we all grew up in one house.
Everybody grew up in one house, and I think it showed kind of there a little bit on the clip. It talked about how you guys farmed and you guys all
Yes.
kind of worked together, and then
Yes.
you stepped out of that in the clip. I think it said 4 years ago. How long has it been now?
It's been 5 years. Yeah,
Yeah,
just over 5 years.
about 5 years 5 years ago. So yeah, fascinating, fascinating. Well, Heather came to me, and Heather's like, "We're doing a new show on hashtag Rise and Grind. We've this is like technically episode what, Heather, like 1,270 or something like that.
Yes.
So technically we've done a lot of episodes, but we've never done one like this." And she was like,
Well,
you got to
let
bring
me
Calvin on with our new release. You're the very first interview we're doing on the new show. So welcome, Calvin. Thanks for being our first. You always remember your first, so thanks for being our first. We appreciate that.
Here's the deal. Calvin Wayman, this dude is unlike anybody I've ever met before in my life. Because not only do you have a crazy story, but I feel like you live a very interesting life. And my question to you is, growing up in that experience that's just super outside of the box, do you think that's why your life now is so outside the box? I mean, this man's standing up on comedy stages. He's pursuing unconventional paths. And you just mentioned that you went all in on entrepreneurship. I feel like the craziest stuff always happens to you. So I'm wondering, do you feel like that foundation of outside the box kind of set you up to live an outside of the box life? Or am I just sitting here making assumptions?
I wouldn't look at it that way, because I don't think I lived an outside. I don't think I was living an outside of the box life in religion, because that's just all I knew. It was actually quite cookie cutter. I mean, I have family that's been living in the same area for 4 generations. I actually think it's believing it that makes it so unconventional, and whatever it was that makes me want to try new things. But once you break the chains, so to speak, that might be a too strong of a term, but once you leave the script, that's probably a better way to look at it. Once you start questioning everything about the life that you were supposed to live, then you start going down this path of like, wait a minute, I don't know if I want to live the way that society, parents, church, or wherever wants me to live. How do I want to live? And then you start asking yourself those questions. And then you start actually being like, well, I would be an entrepreneur, not an employee. I actually think I would rather not live in a small town. I think I'd rather live in a big city. I think I would rather not be so serious all the time. I think I would rather like have friends that are weird like other comedians and that sort of thing. And so I think it is like an unfolding that comes from asking yourself those questions of, if I leave the script, because we all have a script. Somebody, it doesn't matter where you're born, there's expectations of this is the way somebody like you that looks like you, that is how you are, is supposed to live. And sometimes it's from parents, sometimes it's from your cultural surroundings or society at large. And if you start asking yourself those internal questions, I think we all will have a life that is out of the box on some level.
I love that. I think that's fascinating, man. And this idea of questioning everything. I am in a season of that myself now. I grew up with my own stuff, you know what I mean? My own version of what reality looks like. And I like how in some of your talks in clips and whatnot that I've seen, you're like, when you're on the inside, you can't see the glass jar, right? Like you don't see it when you're inside it. It's not till you can get outside it, and then all of a sudden you look back and you're like, wow, that's kind of cool. And so I think we've all had that probably in our own different ways. Yours is bigger and much more tangible on a on that level with 44 kids and that 44 siblings and that kind of thing. How do you think? Now that you're on a different side of an experience and you're able to see that jar for what it was and from this new perspective, how do you how would you say for someone that maybe is in their bubble but don't realize they're in a bubble? They're in their jar but don't realize they're in the jar, right? They're in the job that they signed up for when they were 19 and now they're 45 and they don't even realize that confine is something they've been experiencing, but there's actually something different on the outside. Like, how do you suggest people discover whether or not they're in a glass jar or some sort of bubble? Does that make sense? Am I
They got to
wording
get
that right?
they got to get quiet. They got to
Okay.
get really
Talk to me about that.
uh,
Wow.
they got to go somewhere, and that could be literally in their house. It just find a way to turn down the noise and get quiet to be with themselves, so that you can listen and see what you're really about. One thing I think I'll add to that, there are some people that know in my conversations, they know that there's some level of discontent. And so I also think that they then overwhelm themselves thinking they need to jump the job or
Mm.
have a clear roadmap out. And I think that's also tricky because you don't always have a clear, like, litten pathway of whatever is next. So I think there's a process there. And part of the process is in the getting quiet, what are you doing? You don't necessarily need to start planning and strategizing. I think you need to start getting honest
Mm.
with yourself. Just get really honest. Like, what do I actually care about? Because that's the thing you can control in that moment. You may not be able to control your circumstances clearly or in that exact moment, but you can start getting clear. And if you, or at least clearer, like, I would rather this versus that. I would like this, like, of like this kind of lifestyle. And I think the clearer you can get on that, then if you can start taking leanings in the direction of those things. I call those things your values. Everybody has them. We have
Mm-hmm.
these things that I want freedom over uh, security, even like play with those. Like, where would you rather land? Would you rather have somebody saying, here's your day job, or would you rather do your own thing, even though it may be less secure? That's me. That was something I learned in myself. And that's why I became an entrepreneur. I'd rather just be more control over my life. And then you can start leaning in some direction towards that. And there's a million different ways to lean in. It doesn't have to look perfect. All it has to look like is from where I am sitting now, how can I lean into that value more? If I want to be an author, how can I lean in? Can I block out a day and just brainstorm and write? Yeah, now you're closer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people underestimate the power of that lean in, of that starting, because it's just about that. It's just about little bits of progress. And then after doing that, days, weeks, months, and years, you're like, oh, I actually created something. So that's what I'd say. Get honest with yourself, get quiet so you can get honest with yourself,
Yeah.
what actually matters to you, and then find some way, once you're clear on that, to lean in to those values.
Yeah. Lean into the values, and it's a full-on compound effect, right? Full-on
Yeah.
compound effect starts to add up over time, for sure.
Calvin, when I first met you, I didn't get introduced to you as the dude who grew up in a polygamous family with like four moms
Yeah,
and 40 person. That wasn't, no, I read a book from you that you wrote, Fish Out of Water. And I was like, I like this dude because he's quirky and he thinks a little bit differently. And I had you on my show. We became friends. And then later on, a little bit down the road, I felt like, oh, side note, he had this like crazy ass life. And it wasn't until recently that you're like, you know what? I'm actually going to dig in deep about my story and share it with other people. And I just want to acknowledge you for that, because although we can sit here and joke about it, like, it's been really a crazy ride for you to not only leave,
yeah.
but then also deal with the separation of, coming out and then leaving behind identity and people you love. And so I was just curious, like, what was the reasoning behind going ahead and being open about this? And like, what do you think we can learn from that experience?
I don't know fully.
That's fair. That's fair.
I didn't have a clear plan as far as like, I mean, I guess that's my lean in. A part of my, I know I've wanted to challenge myself to be more open with my story. I think it is somewhat therapeutic. It's one of the reasons I got into comedy, because it is a form of therapy to be able to talk about the past of things that in my culture, it was a very high control environment, and you especially could never criticize or critique certain aspects of it. Certainly the leadership is like this protected class in my church, and I wanted to talk about it. And I want to be able to talk about every part of my life. And again, that's almost a personal challenge, a therapeutic one. And the bet is that that'll help someone. Like I got this from Kevin Kelly. Kevin Kelly is author of there's this great article, 1,000 True Fans. That's a big concept in content and stuff. You don't need to find your million people. You got to find your 1,000 true fans.
Like 1,000 diehards, and you can build pretty much any business, right?
Yeah, exactly. I got some advice from him just right before I started my podcast. We were on a Zoom call together because something happened, and we just were able to connect. And
because that's Calvin Wayman, and he just gets connected with people like that. That's the real reason.
I told him about my my thought of wanting to start a podcast and stuff like that, and asked him if he had any advice. And his advice to me was be uncommonly honest.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And that is what I want to do. And again, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, I mean, Heather and I have had personal conversations about this exactly, and like how it feels like scary to do, but it's something I want to try though, and see what happens. What happens if you actually do this? And I do feel like there's something there, and that maybe somebody can learn from it, get out of maybe they didn't grow up in a cult, but maybe they're living in a toxic relationship, and they need some way to get out, so it's an adventure that I'm on, and we'll see what happens.
So being uncommonly honest along those lines, because I'm with you. I know, and it's funny that you say Heather and I have had these conversations, because I have conversations with Heather too. There's something about Heather that we end up in this place, right? Like,
question everything.
Yeah, next thing you know, you're questioning everything.
It's a therapist background.
I know it comes, but you don't even know she's doing it. That's the thing. You think you're just playing a game of Jenga at a table in a hotel conference room. Next thing you know, you're questioning everything in your entire existence. But with that said, an uncommon level of truth, and I'm with you there. I believe, being authentic, sharing our truths, sharing our experiences, there can be a lot of value from that. What I would like to do right now is give you an opportunity to really do that. So is there any part of that journey that you experienced that you haven't shared yet that you could share with us today, whether it be something that you absolutely loved about it, or something that tore at your soul about it, like anything, because that's a very unique experience for all of us. So I'd love to go there just a little bit. And what did it feel like being you in the midst of 44 siblings in that environment?
A couple things just flashed through my mind. And maybe I've shared something kind of like this, but not full. I mean, leaving was hands down, I mentioned that in that clip, the most difficult thing I've ever done. And why was that? Because bad things aren't always all bad. And I think that's what makes it challenging and tough. And so there's good mixed in it, and it makes it incredibly I think I like to compare, like, even growing up in a high control culty environment to like toxic relationships. After people leave a toxic relationship, there's so much about this horrible person, that he was a narcissist, she was like a bad person or whatever, but there was actually a lot of good too, and that's what makes it so challenging. And like I mean, the most obvious one is having 44 siblings. Like, there were very controlled environments. Like, I couldn't wear short sleeves in my religion and stuff like that, and couldn't say certain words, couldn't behave certain ways, and that was very challenging. But you've never played guns with 10 or 15 of your kids. And if you haven't, I feel bad, because it was so fun to do that. It was so fun to run through the corn and play hide and seek, especially this time of year during harvest time, and when the corn was the tallest and stuff like that. Like, that's what made it, it's part of what made leaving so hard. It's part of what makes leaving toxic relationships or anything else so hard. And yes, people say, well, it's because of the manipulative tactics and stuff like that. That's an element to it, but there's also good elements to it. And I think that's important to know, because you have to just peel away and separate it. It's work. Like,
Yeah.
this is actually not good, but I actually like this part of it. I like family. I like relationships. And it was good for me to know those things, because now I'm keeping those values in this life and developing those types of relationships in my new world that I find myself in.
That's awesome. I could
So,
see it. I could
yeah,
see.
so yeah, trying to put a bow on that. Like, yeah, I mean, the uncommonly honest thing is, it was the hardest thing I've ever done, and it wasn't all bad. There was a lot of really good in a bad situation.
Love it. So you're one of my favorite people, dude, and you know that. I'm like a huge Calvin Wayman fan, not only because of this, but also too, I think God has just given you an insane gift for communication. This dude's funny, y'all. I know it's 5:30 a.m. We're all tired right now, but you need to catch him around lunchtime. Lunchtime, man. So talk to us a little bit about your journey, finding your creative side and wanting to go kind of more into this route right here. Like, I don't know, what are you up to right now? What are you doing in the aftermath?
Yeah, so still an entrepreneur, still doing some things there. I'm really leaning into the things I'm into. So I live in New York City now, which is much different from the small town upbringing that I come from. Uh, I I'm doing comedy, but one of the things I really picked up this year is improv. So I'm a big fan of tasting. A lot of people get caught up in, like, I don't know if you've ever heard anybody say, I don't know what my passion is. What's my passion? What's my passion? That was this guy. I would say that all the time. Like, I don't know what my thing is. What do I want to do? And then it just dawned on me that i- if I was trying to find my favorite food, I'm like, I don't know what my favorite food is, but I was standing in a buffet, I wouldn't just whine about it. I'd start trying things. And so that's what I've been doing a lot the last few years, is like tasting. And one of the things I started to taste was comedy. And I'm like, I like comedy, but more than liking comedy, which I like for the therapeutic effects of, again, talking and processing some of my past and sharing those stories. I like that there's a lot of misfits around comedy.
Yeah.
And I really relate to the misfit, somebody that doesn't really fit in a box. And then improv, which is right not too far off from comedy. That's really what I'm focused on right now. I've been doing a lot of improv lately. And that will connect with comedy, but I like the nature of just figuring things out on the fly and building off of someone, treating each other like they're geniuses on what's coming out, and seeing what story unfolds. And then I just love the community around it as
It's
well.
generous. It's a generous thing. You know what I'm hearing, Glenn Lundy? I don't know if you heard this, but this is what I heard. First of all, he said that when he started questioning things, you just started leaning. You started leaning towards like listening, and it wasn't like something huge and drastic. It was just leaning. And then when you said you were trying to find your passion, you were just tasting things. And I think I get so scared because I'm like, this is the way I have to operate in the world. And what you're saying is allow yourself to be curious.
You're gonna make me cry. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
why, but that's that's something so simple. And I think I relate. Why did that just touch me? I don't know.
Mm.
That's because I think that's a core part of me. And I
Yeah.
think it's a core part of every human is that curiosity. And I think it's such a key point, Heather, because yes, we want to go somewhere. We want to be, we want to be in the perfect life. And I think the way to get there is easier than we realize.
Mm.
And, uh, and it's by that leaning in, like people look at me now and like somebody made me really upset the other day because, they, they were looking at my life and I'm like living in Manhattan and being able to afford a Manhattan apartment. And they're like, that's really lucky for you. And I was
Mm.
like, you don't, you don't get to say that. Yeah, I've been very fortunate and blessed with a lot of things, but it's been a lot of work to
Yeah.
get to the place that I've been in, and I've gone through a lot of fires. But and people might look at like, oh, like I can't live in Manhattan and stuff like that. Neither could I. Like that's bananas. Like to think of like a small town cult kid
Yeah.
that's living there and like again having some really cool experiences. But all this is tying back to Heather's comment. It didn't start there. It started with leaning in. It started with like trying things. It started with I can't afford to live in New York right now, but could I afford a plane ticket to New York right now? Yeah, I could. So I did that and started tasting New York even and started going and trying different parts to then I want to live in this part and then letting things unfold. And so I think that that wasn't a plan for this conversation, but I think that has become a theme that I think is worth keeping. And that's the concept of getting honest with yourself and leaning in to that.
Yeah, Calvin, when she said, curious, right? Just to be curious. And I love how it hit you, and I could feel that too. And I grew up my dad was a really dominant, it was a very strict environment, and so we weren't allowed to explore curiosity when I was a kid. Like we could, but like there was definite walls. And so when she says that, or when she did say that, I think for me, Calvin, it kind of hits because in order to be curious, there has to be freedom, right? We have to be free to taste, free to choose, free to, and that starts here. Freedom starts here, right?
Yes.
Mandela was in a jail cell for decades, but he felt free here, and therefore he was able to change the world. And so, I think for you, I'm sorry, for me, and maybe for you, because of the way we grew up, that might be why that word hits so much, because I associate curiosity with freedom.
Yeah, I think you just unlocked something for me because I always thought that freedom was such a high value, and it is, but it is because it's connected to that.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that till later, that it's because there are these things that I want to explore. I got one life. We got one life. Like we hope that there's something else before or after, but the thing we know for sure is that we're here right now on an early Friday morning, like we know that. And so like what are we doing with that? What do we want to try? What do we want to lean into?
Come on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the
one.
big question, right? What are we doing with that? Where are we investing our time? How are we shifting and shaping this amazing thing called life, man? How are things with your uh, well, I guess let me just like on the short of it, when you grow up in that environment, you said there was five moms, right? Four moms and a dad?
Four moms, one dad. Yeah,
Four moms, one dad. There's a biological mom,
there's a biological mom,
and
and
then
people often ask, like, are they like half siblings. I'm like, I'd never heard the term half sibling until I was in my 20s. Like, they were siblings. Like, my closest brother was just 2 months older than me, because he was from my another mom, from my biological mom. But yeah, they were still all my siblings, is how we looked at it.
Yeah, and then but as far as the relationships with the moms, is it all they're all your moms? It doesn't matter
They're
which
all
one actually birthed you,
Yep.
they're all your moms. What
Right.
does that relationship look like now? Now that you stepped out,
It's
sometimes,
good right now. It was rocky
yeah,
for a bit.
yeah,
I I had some rebellious siblings that never really took on the religion. The thing that was a bit of a whiplash for my family with me is I was like in it. I was in it. Like,
right.
I was like I
It
had
was
gone.
your identity. You owned it.
It was my identity. I went through all of high school years, college years, 20s, and I was in it. And then I make this decision at 30 years old that I'm starting my whole life over. And so when that happened, what I now know looking back is it's like it challenged their own
Yeah, it
perceptions.
shook them up a little bit. Yeah,
Shook them up. And so that had a little bit of a rocky moment, but good now. For the most part, I'm close with some siblings more than others, really tight with like 3 or 4 siblings,
yeah.
and then on decent terms with
Well,
my
yeah, of
family.
course, man.
That's
Some of them
good.
you got to be like, dude, if that's 44 people, you're like, I don't like that person. Like, we love each other. We're all family. Like,
Yeah,
and I don't have, like I said, I got 8 kids, and sometimes you're like, I love that kid, but I don't like that son of a gun right now. Like,
exactly.
there's
Yeah,
nothing. God did not say we had to like him. He just said we had to love him. That's how I feel about all that. So I can only imagine the dynamic with 44. Heather. We gotta wrap this at some time. I feel like we're just getting started, but
I know.
we're
This
gonna
is
have to
a
wrap soon.
special dude, a special dude. But listen. This is a morning show, and for our whole thought here is that the way you start your morning will absolutely change your life. And I know that listening to your show and knowing you and your journey of starting to get into kind of more the personal development and the habits and stuff like that. Just silly question. Are you a morning person? Yes or no? Do you think it actually matters? And you can
yes.
disagree because we're curious around here.
The answer is yes, and I'm thinking of experimenting with being a night owl, just because this
This
is
experience.
like,
Just so you know, you can be both. There's
well,
nothing that
No, you
says you
I
have to
can't.
be
haven't.
one or the
No, no,
other.
no, 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 no. No, you need sleep.
That's the thing. I don't know. Yeah, because if you're staying up till 2 or 3 in the morning, I mean, yeah, you don't want to be getting up at 6:30. The
You,
comedy world and improv world is late night
It is.
often.
All right, so we're going to wrap this up now. There is a question that is
wait,
sacred. It is.
Heather. Let him finish with the Ohio missed the flight story. So
Well,
editing
that
can
was
tie that
directed to the
together.
question of like, am I a
Staying
morning
up
person
late,
or a night
morning
owl?
person. Yeah.
And so yeah, I'll wrap that up and then okay.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So Ohio, go.
Okay. So I would call myself a morning person, except I have been experimenting with staying up late, which is a little bit rocky. I almost missed my flight here to Columbus because of that, because I stayed up a little bit too late, and then I slept through my alarm the next morning and thought I was going to miss my flight. But thankfully, I found a crazy New York City driver that still sped me to JFK on time.
Hey, listen. I got to tell you, I know that there's there's cults out there. There's people with different beliefs and so on and so forth. There's this whole cult around you have to sleep like in 8-9 hours. Heather's a part of that one. Like you have to sleep 8-9 hours. You can't stay up late. You can't get. I'm just here to tell you, Calvin, don't fall for the nonsense, bro. 11 p.m. bedtime, 3:20 a.m. arise. That's this guy. I'm 45. I'm healthy. I'm strong. I do it all the time. Last
Really?
night.
But
Yeah.
I'm
you're a
No,
jealous.
no.
male. There are you have if you look at hormonally, men can sleep a little bit less than women. Women do need a little bit more sleep. You can look at science that says that. So we're gonna
track my
start
sleep
fighting,
with
but
this thing. I track my sleep with this thing, and it tells me how much I got. Is
Me
that a
too.
Whoop? Oh, that's a watch. Okay.
Yeah.
The Whoop strap. That stuff's all good. And Heather is correct. There is plenty of information that will tell you this is absolutely the truth. Women need more sleep. They need more. Like, you got to get a. There's
Come
plenty
on,
of
Calvin, help
information
me.
around that.
I do like where you're
There's
going.
also some other information that we could find that would say different, but it's also called science, and it's also different
What
people.
if everybody did what worked for them?
That's
Bada
right.
bing, bada
That's right.
boom.
That's what I'm saying. Boom.
Speaking of
You
what
can be
works
a
for
night
you,
owl and a morning person. You can
I want you
if
to
you
get some
choose
sleep,
to.
Calvin. I need you to get some sleep so the muse can come to you. Okay, listen. This is really, really important. There is this part of the show where we're going to put you, my friend, on a mountain. Okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to see the biggest mountain in God's creation, like the biggest mountain in the world, and we're going to put you right at the very, very top of it.
That's
All
gonna
right?
be cold. Okay, but
It's so cold there, but here's what's wild is the entire world, every single body, young, old, everybody is standing around this mountain and they are just cheering your
7.8
name.
billion people. Calvin, Calvin,
And they
Calvin,
can do that because they're
Calvin.
well rested. Okay. They have so much energy because they got 8 hours of sleep and they're screaming, Calvin, Calvin. And you have, how long does he have, Glenn? I don't remember.
2 minutes.
2 minutes. 2 minutes to tell
120
them
seconds.
one thing. What would that be?
do I have to use all those 2 minutes?
No,
Ooh.
no, you do
Okay.
not. 2 minutes max to share with them some piece of wisdom, the one thing you would want the entire world to know.
I like how you have a chance to talk to the whole world and you're like, do I really want to talk to them for 2 minutes?
I wouldn't want to use all 2 minutes. I really wouldn't. I'd want to keep it simple so it's memorable. I would say, one life. Who are you? Lean in. Just keep it simple like that. Yeah, I mean, I can elaborate on that, but yeah, like one of the people ask me all the time, what made me leave? Somebody was asking me this last night. Why did I actually ultimately leave the religion and start over my whole life? And it was that realization that we've got one life. And if you realize that, then it's just like, what am I doing with it? And so, yeah, I would just remind people of that. Are you living the life that is actually yours? Or are you living it by somebody else's script? The beautiful thing is I feel like we wake up sometime and realize we're actually holding the pen. We may not be able to change the story of what has happened, but we can write the story of what it is moving forward. So I would just say, remember, if you got one life, make it yours and lean into whatever it is that you are.
One life. Who are you? Lean in. Calvin, I spoke at the 10X Growth Con, Grant Cardone's event this past March. I won a competition with 27,000 people, a speaking competition. And the first 3 words of the speech that I gave at 10X Growth Con were, who are you?
There we go.
And in 3 minutes, I asked that question 3 times over 3 minutes. And the audience was in tears. 10,000 people in the place. Because a lot of them had never really asked themselves that question before.
Yeah.
So I love that is what you would shout from the mountaintops. You and I are absolutely aligned on that. It's probably one of the biggest, most important questions. In my experience, in my life, it's always been one of the biggest and most important questions. One that I'm not sure if you ever truly get the whole answer.
Yeah.
In this existence.
But you can always lean in.
Lean in. Yeah, I love it, bro. I love it. Hey, you've got a podcast that you're doing, right?
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah, so I'm going to show a little clip for everybody about what that podcast looks like, and then we're going to pop out of here, and we're going to let Calvin go do whatever it is Calvin chooses to do at now 6:30 in the morning on a Friday. But you guys got to go check out this podcast. Take a look at this.
For 2 years, this is what people have been asking for, and I'm finally doing it. I've started a podcast.
As a fundamentalist Mormon, having 5 parents and 44 brothers and sisters was the norm for Calvin Wayman.
Today I'll be spending a day with Calvin, an ex-cult member.
Calvin is on a show. The thing I love about the show is just even in the name, culture, emphasis on the word cult.
I have friends who grew up in like real cults. We had somebody on the show who has 44 siblings and 4 moms because he grew up in a polygamist compound. When I look at that, I'm like, okay, that's a cult.
And it's not just going to be heavy all the time.
You had more siblings than there were presidents for a while. Holy shit. You're right.
We're going to have a bunch of guests on the show. I'm into creativity, comedy, entertainment. I want this podcast to be the creative expression for my story and for my perspectives on life. Streaming now.
Oh my God!
Dude, the podcast looks dope, but the clip for the podcast was doper. Dude, that music right there at the end, that hits right there. That's what I'm talking about, dude.
Yeah, I'm pumped for this. I'm pumped for this podcast. It's a challenge, again, a personal challenge to just talk about cult stuff, but also I'm fascinated about culture.
Yeah.
And so I'll have conversations about what's going on in the world, society, and then trying new things. You know, that's a big part of that I want to incorporate into the podcast. These like I have a lot of new experiences all the time. And so I want to document those experiences, whether that's trying new food or bungee jumping, whatever, and then just breaking it down. So yeah, I'm really pumped for this podcast.
It looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. Heather, Calvin, thanks for being with me today here on hashtag
awesome.
Rise and Grind. You guys are both amazing humans. Calvin, if nobody's told you yet today, I want to be the first, brother. I absolutely stinking love you, man. I love that you stepped out. I love that you're sharing. I love your passion for people, which is really what it is. The curiosity that you're exploring. Your journey. I'm excited to follow your journey, man. I know it's gonna be freaking awesome, and I hope we can be friends. Can we be friends? That'd be cool.
Yeah, for
He
sure.
hesitated, Heather. He hesitated.
He did. He's like, "Are you gonna make me get up at 5:30 again?" Or
Did I hesitate? I thought I jumped in. I thought I didn't ask the question. Oh, I was going to say, where do you live, but that doesn't matter because we're all in different places right now and we're still hanging out. So yes,
that's right.
We'll be friends.
That's awesome. Heather, you got anything left?
No, man, y'all just hit up Calvin. I think one of the coolest parts of this community is how much you love the guests. And so please slide into his DMs. Everything that you just saw is exactly who he is in real life. He's just an honest, real, genuine human. And so y'all give him a ton of love today, Calvin. You know I'm a fan, so thanks for doing this for us.
You're welcome, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you connect with Calvin Wayman. Follow his podcast. Connect with him on the socials. Be curious. It's going to be incredible. We'll be back next week. Heather and I, Monday morning, 5:30 a.m. We'll be back doing this all over again on hashtag Rise and Grind. Have an incredible day. All right, and then we'll have...
Wait, did I hear